All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining another one of our weekly webinars. We brought on a fantastic guest today. These topics are meant for you. They are to help you learn and master digital marketing, making money online, mastering things like webinars, faceless video creation, social media domination across the board. We've been doing this for, I think, over a year now, every single week. And we have been loving this series. And today I have a new friend of mine, and I'm excited to learn from him, like you all. We have Stefan Cianco. Is it Cianco? Or did I pronounce that correct?
Cianco, no one ever gets that right.
Cianco. He is and he's the co-founder, CEO of Webinar Kit, a fantastic AI webinar solution that's going to help you as a content creator, as a business owner, wherever you're at. This guy is an absolute wizard and genius about all things content marketing as well. Stefan, we are so happy to have you here today, brother. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Austin. Appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Super excited to be on with you guys today. And like Austin said, I'm hoping to deliver you a very value-packed webinar and give you actionable strategies that you could take into your business. Obviously, Austin's audience, a lot of you guys these days are big into AI and content and things like that. So I'm going to be touching on how we kind of do stuff with AI and what we do with content. So I think you guys are going to appreciate that too. So yeah, with that said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and dive in. I'm just gonna grab the screen here. Let's see. Okay, can everyone see my screen? I just want to make sure it looks okay before I get into full presenter mode here.
Yep, good on my
Yeah.
end.
All right, so here we go. Okay, so the title of this presentation is how to use high converting automated events to generate more leads and sales in 10 minutes, scaling with automation and AI in 2025. So you might be wondering what works in 2025 to automate client acquisition. So what I'm going to kind of cover on this call is first, who am I exactly? Why should you listen to me? Why webinars? Trends and lessons learned running an automated webinar platform with over 15,000 customers. Everyone needs an automated webinar, and lessons learned interfacing with 100 plus marketers making over $500,000 a year in my yearly mastermind. So first, let's start a little bit about me. So my name's Stefan Ciancio. I actually used to be a mechanical engineer. And before I got into the whole online world, I was always very entrepreneurial. So even at an age of 14 years old, I was building websites, collecting autographs of baseball players through the mail, and then selling the ebook of how to do it online. So I was very into information marketing, even from a young age. Little did I know, as I got older, after I became an engineer, I started down the path of working for myself. And a big part of that was starting off doing course selling, I had an agency, I did coaching. And the way in which I was able to scale these businesses was with webinars. So webinars have been an integral part of my strategy going forward. And, with online marketing, things are always evolving. And sometimes people make comments like, oh, webinars are dead. And like the thing is nothing, like even email, right? People are like, oh, email's dead. Email's far from dead. It's just evolved. Same thing with webinars. It's not dead. It's just evolved into something new. And that's why it's good that you're here today, because what I'm going to be talking about is what's evolved and what's changed so that you know how to leverage these tools to actually see success in your business in 2025 and beyond. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Let's talk a bit about one of the most important assets in your business is your webinar presentation. It serves a ton of different purposes. And you might be wondering why webinars. And I'll put it as simple for you as I can. This is my wonderful paint clip art here that I used because the point is to just show you how easy it is to get better results with webinars compared to one-to-one selling. So one-to-one is you going around and talking to people one at a time and having these sales conversations over and over again, one-on-one. It's just not really scalable. Whereas you can do a webinar where you can give that message to a lot of people at once. You can give it to 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people at the same time, as opposed to having to do it one by one by one. So just intuitively, you could see that webinars are a lot more scalable and a lot less work. And if you're not leveraging them, you're really missing out. And webinars take many forms. And this is kind of interesting over the years. Things have changed when it comes to webinars. But essentially, there's many different ways that you could do a webinar. There's live webinars, there's automated webinars, there's webinars that are just a day, like the one we're doing today. There's series, so there's people who do a weekly webinar series. There's also challenges. So essentially, you can get out there and set up what's called like a 3-day or 5-day challenge. And then there's people who do monthly webinars. And these are just an example of different things that you could call them. But at the end of the day, they're really all just webinars. People are nano cosmic workshops. They're all the same thing. It's all a webinar. And that kind of ties back to what I said earlier about how things have just kind of evolved. Um, so if you hear these terms, just know that it's just an evolution of a webinar. And the goal of your webinar essentially is to nurture and convert. So essentially, how do we take um, a stranger who doesn't know who we are and then get them within a very quick time, say 30, 45, 60 minutes, to go from not knowing us to turning them into a fan who knows, likes, and trusts you, sees you as an authority, and buys from you. Isn't that crazy that we could take someone who didn't know who we were 45 minutes ago, get them to know, like, trust us, see us as an authority, and then give us money in 45 minutes? It's kind of crazy, right? But that's the power of a webinar presentation, is that if you do it correctly, it'll allow you to do that, and it'll allow you to do it at scale without having to worry about doing it one-on-one over and over again. So just think about all the things that a webinar presentation takes care of on a high level. And honestly, the coolest thing is a webinar presentation doesn't just get you new sales and clients. It does a whole lot more. Obviously, the main goal is we want more sales and more clients, right? And that's the most important thing. And that is the biggest thing that a webinar does for you. But it also solves a lot of other problems for you. For example, a webinar is actually great for lead generation because honestly, if you don't have a lead magnet, just invite people to webinars. You're going to build your list because people are going to opt into your webinars the more often you do them. And you don't need to necessarily have a separate lead magnet. Just get people invited to the webinars and you're going to start building your list right away. It solves the sales and clients issue. It creates engagement with your audience, which is necessary. It nurtures them and it gets you a bunch of booked calls and demos. Maybe you're not using a webinar to directly convert people, to buy something right away. Maybe you want to get them on a call. If you are doing booked calls and demos on the back end of a webinar, anyone who's going to book a call is going to be 10 to 100 times more qualified and interested in buying than if you are not doing a booked call. It just works on, I'm sorry, if you're not doing a webinar, it just works on an entirely different level. And another really interesting thing is consistency with webinars. So for example, I at one point was doing a lot of webinars and I would have people who would show up on the first webinar that I did. The next month, I'd do another webinar. And the third month, I'd do another webinar. And essentially, by the fourth or fifth webinar, I'd have people get on the call with me to buy a high ticket program. And they'd say, yeah, I watched your October webinar. I watched November. I watched December. I watched January. And then in February, they're like, yeah, I knew I was ready to invest with you. So consistency is very important, but you're not just building. What's cool about webinars is you're getting all of the immediate buyers, but you're also getting all of the people who are now not ready to buy from you right away, because not everyone is going to buy from you right away, but you're building that pipeline of people that are now a fan of yours or interested in what you're doing, and they're going to stay on your list. They're going to stay engaged with your audience, and they're going to keep opening your emails, and eventually they're going to take an action with you. So you're optimizing now buyers and you're optimizing later buyers. So who is this training for? Well, if you're brand new to business, you're a coach or an online business of some sort, and you're looking to make more sales with webinars, if you're already advanced and you're looking for more strategies, regardless of if you're brand new or advanced, this is going to be really, really powerful for you. And this really works for any business in any niche. So whether you're a coach, an affiliate marketer, an agency, a software business, you're selling courses, even if you're doing e-commerce, or you're some sort of influencer or like in-person business, like a professional, this is going to work for you and you'll see very clearly why. Now, here's the thing. If you're aimlessly trying to go out and generate leads without a proven system, you're going to waste your time and delay your own success. So if you're just sitting there doing a bunch of cold emails to businesses, posting links on social media today, and just going into paid advertising without an actual system or knowing what you're doing to actually convert these leads, you're going to just basically spin your wheels and you're not going to actually get any really amazing results. I've been in the position before of inconsistent sales, being burnt out and overworked, going live over and over again, and feeling like I'm on a hamster wheel, taking the same actions and getting nowhere. Has anyone else felt this way? Let me know in the chat if anyone else has felt this way before. Yeah, exactly. What I learned is that you need a consistent and predictable automated sales process. Okay. This is the most important thing. So after hundreds of split tests, we learned something pretty cool. So I want to ask you, let me know A or B in the chat here. Which lead turns into a sale? A, the person engaged in an awesome and fun video explanation, or B, the person scrolling through a long form page with tons of content trying to get an idea of the product or service. Which one do you think works better? Let me know in the chat. A or B? Let's see. What does everyone think? Let me know in the chat. Okay, so we got a lot of people coming in saying A. Okay, A is the correct answer. So you might be wondering, but why? So it's the way that content is consumed. So there's two ways that people could consume content. One is audio visual consumption. So this is linear. And another one is text and randomized content consumption, which is sporadic. So at the end of the day, the linear is much more easily consumed because it goes in the order that you want people to actually consume it. Whereas if you just give people a sales page and they are scrolling back and forth through the sales page, they're not necessarily going to really understand and receive the information in the order it was meant to be received. I'll give you a perfect example. If you were watching a movie, a 2 hour movie, right? There is a specific order that the content of that movie has to go through. And what's really interesting is if you went through the movie, like let's say you watched the first 5 minutes and then you fast forwarded 30 minutes and then you fast forwarded another 30 minutes and then you went back and watched the first 20 minutes out of order, it wouldn't make any sense. You'd be all over the place. You'd say, I don't understand what's going on. Whereas if you follow the audio visual consumption in the order it's meant to be received, like a movie, there's usually the beginning part, which is building the backstory, getting you used to the main character, something like that. And then you're getting into the action, the hero's journey. And then at the end, you actually feel like you piece it all together. You understand, right? So it's so important to be doing audio visual consumption in your business. A person that watches a webinar is a hotter lead and it drastically increases conversions. And again, it could be any webinar. It could be a webinar, a mini webinar, a challenge, a workshop, a demo, a training, etc. Another perfect example here. I've always struggled with back problems in my life. Like I've had so many back issues over the years. And I remember one day I was scrolling on social media and I was looking, or I was going to Google and I was looking for a chiropractor. So I Googled chiropractor in my area and there was a bunch that popped up, right? They all had pretty cookie cutter websites. They all had roughly around the same reviews. And, and there was a website where essentially there was a webinar on the chiropractor's website. It was just a replay of a webinar. It wasn't even properly set up. It's just on there, like a webinar. And it was like 3 ways to manage your debilitating lower back chronic back pain or something like that, right? That most doctors won't tell you. It was a really good title. And I I remember watching it and being like, wow, I do webinars for a living, but I need to see this guy because the webinar was just that good where he understood my pain. Even though I knew the underlying mechanisms behind the webinar, I still knew that this guy was going to get it better than any of the other guys just strictly because of his content. And even if the other doctors were better than the one I was going to see, they didn't do as good of a job communicating that. And that is the power of a webinar, especially if you're outside of the marketing niche. They're so differentiating. And this is a perfect example of that. All right, so let's get into a little bit. The 3-step webinar framework that turns cold, skeptical leads into hungry buyers begging to pay you. Give me a 1 if you're excited for this. in this presentation. I want to make sure everyone's ready to go here. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So here is the six-figure webinar framework. So there's three parts to a killer webinar. The first part is the vehicle. The second part is the objection killer. And the third part is the no-brainer, okay? So let's go ahead and get into that a little bit. Oops, sorry. Oops, okay. So I guess this is a slide we're going to get into it a little bit. So the vehicle is pretty simple, right? Every webinar is basically has something called a vehicle. And ironically, on this webinar, what is the vehicle? The vehicle about this webinar is webinars, right? So whichever thing that you're doing, like in the case of Austin and what he usually teaches, a lot of what he does with his software does, the vehicle is AI faceless videos, right? So there's always a vehicle that is the main solution to people's problems on a webinar. So essentially, whatever you sell, I want you to make sure you think about what is the actual solution that you're offering to the problem. So if you are a chiropractor, right, the solution, the vehicle that you're offering could be obviously something chiropractic, but it would be something more specific than that. It could be your specific take on chiropractic or whatever the terminology is. So maybe you have a specific strategy within the chiropractic world that works better than what all the other chiropractors are doing. So you need to think in terms of what makes what you're doing so much better. So that's number one. That's the vehicle, right? Now, the objection killer is basically what are the things that people feel they can't leverage that vehicle, right? So in the case of webinars, what are some of the main things that stop people from doing webinars, right? They're afraid to present live. They feel like making a webinar is going to take too much time or cost too much money if they hire someone. They're not sure if webinars are ideal for their industry. So these are all different objections that you ideally want to address on your webinar. So when you're doing a webinar live or even automated, you need to sit down and think about this. And you want to think about what are all the objections that someone is going to have to do what it is that I'm showing them they need to do, whether that's a webinar or whatever it is. What are all the objections and how do I handle them? So, for example, maybe with with dieting, right? Maybe you're a health coach or you're in the health field and you're offering to sell people a specific diet that they should follow. They might think, I've tried every single diet out there before. So how do you get in front of that objection? They might think, this diet isn't going to work for me for whatever reason. You need to kind of get in front of objections, right? In the case of Austin with his AI faceless videos, it's kind of the objection handling is right in the name, right? Faceless videos. What does that mean? You don't have to show your face. A lot of people don't want to show their face on things. So if you have an I imagine part of why Austin does so well, just a part of it is that faceless is an objection handler right in the title of his product. It sells itself from that angle. People don't want to be putting their face out there. So faceless makes it easy to take advantage of the same system without having to put your face out there. So that's an example of an objection killer right there. And then the last piece of the webinar framework that is so important. And by the way, guys, I do have a bonus for you at the end of this webinar. I have my seven-figure webinar framework. So I'm going to be giving you the full webinar framework at the end of this call that you can leverage. And I'm also going to show you how to plug it into AI so that you can get a script very fast. So that's coming on the end of the call. But I just want to make sure you guys know that. So outside of the objection killer, the last piece is the no-brainer. What does that mean? Well, you need to come up with a special offer for someone. And I want you to think back to what I said before about killing objections. Now, what are the objections someone might have to what you're selling? So for example, if you are selling some sort of, I'll give you an example, like a business or marketing solution, what is going to stop people from taking action? Well, if you sell just a tool, they might be thinking, well, I don't know how to use the tool. Or they might be thinking, okay, I have a tool, but I don't have a roadmap to success. Or they might be thinking, I don't have any help. They might be thinking, I'm going to have to go out to Salon. I don't have a community. They might be thinking, how do I kind of put all this together? How do I drive traffic? Whatever the different objections are, you want to create different pieces of the offer that handle each objection. So for example, if you're selling a software, you should include a course with that software. You should include a community with that software. You should include done-for-you templates with that software. So you're kind of stacking the objections that into and giving them into people into solutions, because then you take away all of their objections. There's nothing left for them to be able to do. They're to be able to say no to. They're like, oh, well, he covered everything. You know what I mean? I guess I'm going to have to grab this. So that's a really powerful way to do the selling. And that's as simple as a webinar is. If you're doing these three things, you're 95% of the way there. So what I want to kind of talk about now is because I've obviously used webinars in my business over the years, and I still use webinars in my business to grow. But what's really interesting and something that I have a pretty unique perspective on is I also run a webinar platform, and we've had a lot of people use our platform. So I have been able to have some inside knowledge into trends and lessons learned running automated webinars. Running an automated webinar platform with over 15,000 customers. And I would like to share with you what some of those lessons learned are, because we've learned some pretty interesting things that I think are going to give you a lot of tips to help you grow. So we looked at data from running our webinar platform, and we learned a few things. And I would like to share some of this with you. So on the automated side, because we do Webinar Kit does automated webinars, and we also have a live webinar solution. So average duration, the average automated webinar on our platform was 68.74 minutes. The average registration conversion rate, so people that would actually opt in from the landing page, was 33.23%. The average attendance rate on automated webinars was over 55%. Now, on the live side, the average duration of a live webinar was much longer on our platform. It was over 100 minutes versus 68 to 69 minutes. Now, on live webinars, people did register at a higher rate. They registered at over 40%, whereas on the automated webinars, people registered at 33%. But here's the big difference. On live webinars, the attendance rate was 31%. On automated webinars, the attendance rate was 55%. So what can we conclude about this? Automated webinars see 7% less registrations, but they see 24% more attendees. That means out of every webinar invite, let's say that we invite 100 visitors to a webinar, 33% of them are going to opt in for an automated webinar, but 55% are going to view it. That's 18 viewers of your content, 18 people out of 100 consuming your content. Whereas with 40 live registrations, 31% view. You get more registrations, but only 31% view the webinar. That's only 12 out of 100 people. That means that in having an automated webinar in your business is a 50% increase in webinar viewers with good traffic. That could mean 50% higher sales than live events. So here's what's interesting. Am I saying not to run any live webinars? Absolutely not. Am I saying that you should have an automated webinar, an automated demo running at all times in your business where people could, on their own time, get to that page, discover it, opt into the next available time to watch the webinar, and then watch it at their own leisure? Absolutely, because you are building that list of people who have consumed some form of your messaging in a webinar format. And remember how powerful webinars are at converting people compared to sales pages, etc. So you should have an automated event running at all times, because that's how people are going to build a bond with you. And you could do it in Netflix fashion, which means that this is basically running all times on your website, wherever it is that this presentation is available and running. Just like Netflix, it's available on demand, which is why it leads to more viewers. So that's some powerful insights that we wouldn't have gotten if we hadn't been running our own webinar tool. So another interesting thing is that live webinars on average have been around 31 minutes longer. That means with automated webinars, you could have a much shorter presentation and get roughly 25% more people to see it without having to go live all the time. And the data is not super surprising. I mean, here's an example. The majority of US consumers subscribe to at least one streaming service. Why? Everyone's getting off cable TV and they're moving to streaming, right? It's been happening. It's already pretty much cable TV still exists and it still has its place, right? There's still certain things that you're going to want to watch live. But at the end of the day, almost everything has moved to on demand. And in your business, you should be moving to on demand as well. And that's why everyone needs an automated sales machine, which is what we're talking about here today. So everyone needs an automated webinar. And what's so much better about an automated webinar than a live webinar? Well, it's more leads and sales without going live. Live webinars are great, but like I said, they have some limitations. Number one, it requires you to be fully live. There's potential for unrehearsed blunders. There's potential for tech issues. They can be tiring and tedious. Oftentimes, giving the same presentation over and over again, and people are constrained to show up at a set date and time. Am I saying that you should absolutely eliminate live webinars from your business? Absolutely not. If they work for you, great. But if you are feeling a little burnt out, if you are feeling that you need to systematize, if you are feeling that you are not taking advantage of automated webinars next to live webinars, at least in some form, then you know that you have to build something else into your business. And that's where automated events come in. What I love about automated events is you get a seamless presentation every time. You can automate over 100 events per month, making it easy for more people to show up when convenient, meaning more leads and sales. No potential for live blunders and no need to go live over and over again. And what's cool is you can automate almost any virtual event. You can automate a sales webinar. You can automate a challenge. You can automate a workshop. You can automate a mini webinar. You could automate a demo. You could automate a training. You could do onboardings through this. You could automate anything else that you want. So ironically, so here's the interesting thing. I'm using slides from an event that I automated, right? So it says you're experiencing the power of an automated event right now. So if imagine that this was automated, no, I'm live for this one, but you could have something like this running in your business, sharing a sales webinar, an automated demo, or anything else that you want by simply placing it over your existing website or sharing anywhere, right? If you have an automated webinar link, you could share that anywhere. One thing I'm doing in my business that I just started doing a couple weeks ago is on LinkedIn. I have someone who does cold outreach for me full time on LinkedIn. So when I get a new connection, what do you think we do? If we're targeting coaches, we send a message that says, hey, hope you're doing well. Thanks for the connection. We actually still have free access to our automated training, which shows you how to get more clients using automation and AI. Here's the link if you'd like to view it while it's still free. And we send that link to every new connection. Now I have an automated selling system that's out there closing for me, and I don't have to do any of the work. So it's super, super powerful. And again, you could place it anywhere. You could place it on your LinkedIn. You could message people. You could direct it to your existing traffic. What we like to do is use it on a widget on our website. So there's a lot of different things that you could do to get traffic to your automated salesman. So simple math suggests, based on what we talked about with the automated webinars from the data, is a higher return on ad spend. It could be as high as a 50% increase. It's selling for you 24/7, so you don't have to worry about only selling while you're on a live webinar, and it's less stress from worrying about going live all the time. So what I think is really cool is that you could put your automated webinar on your existing sales page. So we do this. We actually recently launched a new webinar on our website, an automated webinar, and we already have a bunch of traffic that comes to our homepage. So what we do is we keep a widget that says, hey, here's a link to our training, and we start getting more leads that opt into that training, and people close. We're having people close on that webinar every day. So it's the power of just setting it up and letting it run. And you don't have to sit there doing the selling manually. So like I said here, you could place this on your existing website or funnel. Some percentage of people consume from your existing setup. You install the automated webinar conversion machine, and that leads to more leads, more sales, and trust that you're currently missing out on. So now I'd like to share a little bit more information with you. Lessons learned interfacing with 100 plus marketers, doing over $500,000 a year in my yearly mastermind. So one thing I'd like to share is that if whatever your webinar is, you should definitely add that webinar. So you should always have more touch points in your business, right? What's a touch point? A touch point is basically another way to get in touch with a potential buyer about your product or service. So what's interesting is there's something called the rule of seven. The rule of seven states that it takes an average of 7 exposures with a prospect to generate a sale. In other words, prospects must be exposed to your B2B company or marketing messages at least 7 times before they'll agree to make a purchase. So this is called touch point marketing. So for example, if you already have a website, if you already have an email list and you're not doing automated webinars, this is the perfect additional touch point to add if you're not at 7 yet. Another thing that you should do is daily emails. You should be mailing out at least multiple times a week. Mail from your company's newsletter brand and from a personal brand newsletter. You could do personalized emails. I have sent personal emails to people and gotten sales by downselling after calls with our closers. So, for example, let's say that you have a sales team or you have people that are closing. I've actually emailed people that have talked to one of our closers in the past when we've done phone sales. We're not doing phone sales now because I like webinars. But what I've done is I've gone and I've emailed those people. You could do the same thing with webinars. After a webinar, someone registers. Um, if they don't opt in or they don't buy, you could literally get all those emails and send them an email from yourself as the founder of the company or a person who runs your own business and say, hey, I saw that you watched our webinar and you didn't grab the product. What were your thoughts? So that's another thing that you could do. Personal touch points make a huge difference, especially on the back end of a webinar where there's already a lot of trust built. You can also use marketing love languages to increase different types of messages. So that's pretty cool. What is a marketing love language? Well, some people consume information in different formats. So for example, some people might love consuming information through a webinar. Some people might like a 10-minute presentation. Some people might like a blog post, right? So what you could do is you could take your webinar and you could tweak it and basically create other forms of the same messaging. Get that message from the webinar into different formats for people to consume. So kind of elaborating on that, everyone responds to different mediums of consuming content. And you want to get in front of the most people by adapting your content to those different formats. I definitely got to take a sip of something. Give me a second here, guys. So what are those different forms that you can do? Well, one of them is an automated webinar. Another one is a blog post, short form video sales letter, a long form sales page, short form sales page, UGC content like from Billo, um, short form video, live town hall, long form demo video. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Take this, and again, you have to have winning messaging for this to work. If your messaging isn't working on one medium, it's not going to work on other mediums. But if you have a winning message, you could broadcast that message across many more mediums to get even better results. And now, we used to say the money's in the list. It still is, but the money's really now in the follow-up. That's what I like to say. So beyond just email, there's a lot of other things that you could be doing to grow your business. So SMS marketing, LinkedIn, Facebook group, Facebook profile, and then, like we said, turning your marketing message into all of those different things that we discussed. So at the end of the day, when people opt into your form here, the thank you page, right? This is a thank you page optimization. So this is what most people do, which is they have the registration page for their webinar, they have a thank you page, and then there's the automated webinar and follow-ups. What are the desired actions that people will take? They will take it after viewing the automated webinar and the follow-ups. But here's the thing. What if you can add in on the thank you page of your webinar something for them to take an action from the thank you page? Now you're optimizing, because at the end of the day, you want them to take an action. The action you want them to take is, obviously you want them to register for your webinar, but you have a bigger action you want them to take, right? You want them to opt in for a booked call, or you want them to buy your product or service. Well, what if you increase the amount of times you're asking them to do that by getting the people who already are on the thank you page to take the desired action? Remember what I said earlier about how a lot of people on the back end of a webinar are ready to buy? Well, in addition to that, what a lot of people are ready to buy even just off the thank you page. So you're just taking it a step even backwards to create another opportunity for people to buy from you. So this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. This is actually our webinar thank you page, or one of our webinar thank you pages, is we actually tell people to sign up right after they book the spot for the webinar. So on your thank you page for your webinar, tell them to do the thing you're going to tell them to do after the webinar. Some people are going to be willing to take that action right away. And then the ones who aren't are going to watch the webinar. So that's a super powerful optimization to help you. And now I'd like to talk about the AI advantage, right? This is what's really cool is we're in 2025. So you might be wondering how to create a high converting webinar and sales inducing content in minutes and not weeks. So this is really cool. So the old way of creating webinars were that it would take weeks or months writing scripts, hours creating slides, days crafting emails, multiple revisions, and constant testing. But now there's a better way. Your entire webinar script could be done in minutes. This includes registration page copy, email sequences, follow-up campaigns, and sales messages, right? You could do that all very, very quickly. Now, there is a right and a wrong way to do this, right? So you want to make sure you're doing it the right way. So the wrong way is just going to AI and saying things like, write me a high converting webinar. You could do this, but your results may suck. The right way is feed AI proven data of past conversions, train it on what's worked, and the right data is key here. For example, hint, hint, I'm giving you guys a webinar template on this call. Take it and feed it into the webinar presentation, feed it into the AI, the webinar presentation slide deck that I'm giving you at the end. How do you do this? Honestly, these days you could do it with ChatGPT, but I personally love Claude.ai. So you can go to Claude.ai and you can see right on the screen here, there's a little attach button here. And with this attach button, I can actually upload my slide deck. And now I could say, study this slide deck. It'll say, great, Stefan, I just studied the slide deck. What would you like me to do now? And I will say, here's my product. Here's my website. Here's what I sell. You could upload your website as a PDF. You could do so many different things. And then when you're done, it'll spit out the content for your webinar. 85% of the content for my last webinar came from Claude, and I'm an advanced copywriter. So I got 85% there, and I spent an hour tweaking it. And within an hour, I had a powerful webinar that is making me sales every single day in my business right now, getting me $997 a year sales in my business. So this works, and you could use AI to do it. Another cool thing with Webinar Kit, our software, is we actually, if you're going to use Webinar Kit for your automated webinars, is we build some AI functionality right into Webinar Kit to make it dumbfoundingly easy. What did we build in? Well, we built in the ability for you to essentially create AI content in the webinar, in the software. So if you have your webinar title, your landing page, your registration page copy, your email follow-up that you build inside of Webinar Kit, you press what we call the AI button, and it'll spin up the content for you. So you don't even have to write any of it yourself. So with that said, guys, I want to take this link. I want to give you this link here. It's stefancianco.com/slide deck. This is going to be your free webinar template that you can grab so that you can plug this into AI or use this for anything else that you like in your business. It's highly, highly effective. It's proven to convert. It's never not worked for me. So you could use this to create a webinar for your own business. And so you can get that at stefancianco.com/slide deck. Now, because you're on this webinar and you're part of Austin's community, we do have a special deal for you today. So if you are looking to get started with webinars and grow your business, we've built the ultimate package for you. So we have our software webinar kit, which does AI-powered automated webinars and challenges. We have the AI chatbot, which does the selling for you. While you're having your automated webinar run, it'll respond to chat messages. We have Webinar Kit Academy. We have fill in the blanks webinar templates. We have fill in the blanks marketing templates. We have private community. And what's really cool is because you're part of Austin's community, we are giving you 50% of all plans off for all plans for life for a limited time. So you can go to getwebinarkit.com and make sure you use the coupon code SocialTPro. This is Austin's and his community's coupon. And essentially, you could go to getwebinarkit.com, grab this package for 50% off. Whatever you see the price of the plans on the checkout page, right? We do have discounted plans on the homepage for our yearly plan. So that said, this 50% off is the higher discount because you're part of Austin's community. So you can take advantage of this off of we have 3 pricing options at the moment. We have our monthly, our yearly, and our lifetimes. I will tell you that we are closing the lifetimes for good at the end of March. So if you want to grab a lifetime plan for 50% off, hint, hint, that's going to be the best value because you will be able to use the tool over and over again without having to worry about paying ongoing. That said, even if you grab our monthly plan for half off or you grab our yearly plan, you're going to get a really good deal. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, everyone. So I would just like to see if anyone has any questions before we wrap up the call. that I can help you with, please let me know and in the chat here.
I think we're clear. Does anyone want to ask any questions? Feel free to message us here in the chat, and Stefan will be more than happy to address your questions, guys. Nicole, do you have any questions for Stefan?
No, I don't, but I do want to say that 50% off code is like 50% off. That's a lot of money off. So if you guys are looking forward to doing that, use the code SocialtyPro. I mean, it's not every day that you get 50% off of any kind of package. So I think that's super duper beneficial. And we just appreciate you for joining us today. Stefan, you have so much knowledge, and we love knowledge here in our webinar. Sorry, that's my little puppy dog, you guys. Don't forget, everyone, we have our Facebook group where we have a lot of support there. You can find anything that has to do with syllabi or anything else over in our Facebook group, as well as our Discord. We will link the discount code for Stefan's webinar kit there as well. And we just really appreciate all of you guys coming out to the webinar. And I hope you guys have a great day. Ciao, you guys.